story one-story rewritten version. I was 16 when it happened, though it still feels closer than it should. It was that restless stretch at the tail end of summer when the days drag but the nights sneak up. On you, that's when Justin brought up the idea. Not just camping the kind where you pull into a site. Eat half-burnt hot dogs and joke about ghost stories, but real camping. Backcountry. He'd heard about it from his uncle, who hunted deep in the Appalachian range. Said there were places far enough off-trail where you could live for days without spotting a single person. No signs, no service, no safety net. Justin pitched it like we'd be crossing some invisible line, leaving behind kid games and actually proving something to ourselves. There were four of us. Justin, his cousin Derek, my neighbor, and me. We weren't inseparable friends, but we knew each other well enough to trust one another in the woods. We split the gear to worn-out tents, bags of canned food and jerky, a mess of flashlights. And these flimsy headlamps Justin swore were military-grade, even though they looked like dollar store toys. We set off on a Thursday morning, leaving the car at a maintained trailhead. The first few hours felt like any hike marked pots. Other hikers with better gear, the occasional laugh that felt too loud in the quiet. But round mid-afternoon, Justin stopped dead, scanning the tree line. "It's this way," he said, like he could see something invisible. There was nothing but wall-to-wall forest. No path, no markers. Just green swallowing everything. I hesitated, stomach tight, because the trail behind us felt safe. But Derek stepped in after Justin. Then Owen, giving me that look like you're not backing out, are you? So I followed. The difference was immediate. Off-trail, the woods felt heavier. The air pressed closer. Every sound was sharper branches cracking, birds calling once and then cutting off. No human noise at all. We walked for what felt like an hour, maybe more, before stumbling onto a small clearing. It wasn't much, but flat enough to drop the tents. Justin looked smug, like he'd just proven he wasn't bluffing. We built a fire, burnt food on sticks, left until the stars came out. For that one night, it was exactly what I wanted. No phones, no parents, just us and the dark. The second night is where everything twisted. Derek and Owen crashed early, leaving me and Justin by the fire. The flames had burned down to glowing orange veins, and we were mostly just stirring the coals, letting the sparks float up. Then Justin leaned close and said, "I found something earlier." Normally, I'd roll my eyes. He loved to spook people, but his face wasn't joking. His mouth was set hard, his eyes wide. He said he'd been gathering wood when he noticed a break in the hillside, nearly hidden by thick brush. He hadn't gone in, just remembered. Part of me wanted to refuse. I was tired, and caves creep me out in a way I can't explain. But he had that look, that restless energy, like he'd uncovered something no one else had touched in years. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my flashlight and went with him. We moved like thieves, ducking branches and stepping round sticks so we wouldn't wake the others. The deeper we went, the more the dark thickened. No moonlight, no stars, just our thin beams of light carving through the trees. After 10 minutes or so, we reached a slope. Justin pulled aside a wall of vines, and behind it, there was a fissure in the hill, narrow, black, inviting nothing good. He gave a little grin, slipped through, and I forced myself in after him. The air hit first, damp and spoiled, like a freezer that lost power weeks ago. My light jetted across stone and dirt, catching scraps, crumpled wrappers, rusted soda cans, a busted plastic fork. People had been here recently. The smell thickened the deeper we went. Not strong, but sharp enough like meat gone sour, mixed with something chemical. That's when I noticed the corner. A bulging black trash bag, tied off tight. Next to it, a mound of flattened, stained blankets nearby. Greasy fast food bags still holding scraps of food bread turning green. Meat slick with rot dot Justin crouched. Nudged the wrapper. "This is fresh," he whispered. Then he froze. Half hidden under the trash was a thick black book. Leather. He tugged it free, flipped it open and dropped it like he'd been burned. "Pictures," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Dead people." I didn't look. I couldn't. I was still processing when the cave lit up. A flash sharp. White, unmistakable. Not our lights, a camera. That pop of instant light that erases shadows and leaves everything visible for a fraction of a second. In that frozen moment, I saw it all. The walls, the trash, the blankets. Justin's terrified face staring at me. I bolted. My shoulder cracked. Against the stone. Skin tearing. But I shoved myself through the gap and didn't stop. Branches whipped my arms and face as I tore through the woods. Behind me, Justin's footfalls crashed in rhythm. But neither of us said a word. When we burst into camp, we must have looked insane. Derek and Owen scrambled out of the tent, demanding answers. We couldn't give them any. How do you explain that someone took your picture while you were standing in their lair? We just said someone was out there, that we needed to stay together, lights on, until morning. None of us slept. We sat with our backs touching, staring into the trees, waiting at first light. We packed in silence. No arguments, no hesitation, straight back to the trailhead, straight to the payphone, straight to the ranger station. Two rangers agreed to come with us, Justin and I leading the way. But when we reached the cave, it was different. The wrappers and cans were still there, but the bag was gone. The blankets were gone. The album was gone. We kept insisting it was right here. It was all here, but there was nothing left to show. The rangers wrote notes, promised they'd check the area, but their faces said it all. They didn't believe us. Story *2 I was 26 when I decided to take a solo trip into the Grapevine Wilderness. Most of my backpacking trips had always been with a group, friends, co-workers, or at least one other person who knew the trails. This time I wanted to try it differently. Just me, the woods, and the kind of silence that presses on your ears. It wasn't about being dramatic or proving anything to anyone but myself. I just wanted to see if I could stand it, if I could handle the kind of quiet, where every thought has nowhere to hide. I picked a trail that didn't show up on any guidebooks. It wasn't completely unknown, but it wasn't listed on the best hike sites either. No overlooks, no campsites, no signs with cute arrows telling you how many miles to the waterfall. Just an old ranger line on a faded map that curved deep into the trees and over the ridge. The first day went smoothly. My pack felt heavier than it should have, probably because I overpacked. Too many just-in-case items. The sun burned hotter than expected, and I only stopped a few times to drink water. By the time the sky started softening into evening, I found a narrow flat patch about 50 yards off trail. It wasn't an official site, but it was soft underfoot and ringed with spruce and fir. It felt tucked away, almost hidden. I pitched the tent, set my gear, and even dragged a few stones from a dry creek bed to make a fire pit. By the time the fire crackled, the camp felt secure, almost comfortable. My food bag was tied high between two trunks, my tent zipped shut, and my pan warming on the flame. That's when I noticed it. The tent zipper was undone halfway. It looked wrong. Not torn, not snagged, but unzipped, neat and precise. I know for certain I had closed it earlier. It's a habit. I always zip it and tug it just to check. Yet here it was, gaping open like someone had started to crawl inside, then changed their mind. I forced myself to be rational. Maybe I didn't close it fully. Maybe gravity tugged it down. I zipped it again, peeked inside, and saw nothing out of place. My sleeping bag was where I'd left it. My pack tucked against the wall. No paw prints. No mess. Still. Unease clung to me. Dinner didn't taste like much. I chewed slowly, eyes darting to the tree line, listening to heart. Was that cracker branch, or something heavier? I sat there longer than I should have before finally putting the fire out and crawling into the tent. This time I checked the zipper twice, even tugged it just to be sure, but lying there. The air felt wrong. Not cold, not humid, just heavy. I sat up to grab my flashlight and froze. My pack had shifted. Not far, just tilted slightly, maybe moved a few inches. It hadn't fallen. It was still upright. But I knew that wasn't where I left it. I stared until my eyes blurred, waiting for it to move again. When it didn't, I lay back down, though I never really slept. Every rustle, every creak, every scratch of bark jolted me awake again. When dawn finally broke, I climbed out fast, expecting to see something. Tracks, prints, a broken branch. Nothing. Just untouched forest. I packed quicker than usual, forcing myself to eat a rushed breakfast as I stuffed my sleeping bag into its sack. Something snagged the drawstring. At first I thought it was a knot. Then I saw it. A stone. Small, smooth, round. Tied deliberately into the cord with a tight loop. It didn't match the rough creek stones I'd used for the fire pit. It looked chosen. Almost polished. I hadn't tied it there, and I hadn't touched that cord since my last trip. There was no way it had been there before. I slipped it into my pocket and moved on. My next campsite was higher up the ridge, more exposed. It offered a sweeping view of the valley. No trees close enough for anyone to sneak up. Somehow it felt safer. I went through the motions again, setting the tent, checking the zippers twice, placing my boots neatly by the wall. The sunset came quick, pulling the forest into shadow. I told myself the stone, the zipper, the shifted pack, all of it was nerves, but I didn't believe myself. Somewhere deep in the night, I woke to a sound, not an animal, not wind. The zipper. It moved slowly, inch by inch, the teeth clicking soft as the slider dragged down. My heart slammed against my ribs. I held my breath, staring into the dark. Then I saw it. A thin cord was tied to the zipper pull, stretching outward through the gap, into the black beyond my tent. Someone was pulling it. I didn't think. I slashed the cord with my knife, yanked the zipper shut, and tore the stakes from the ground. I shoved the tent and gear into my pack in a shaking mess, boots half tied, flashlight slipping from my hands. Then I ran. Branches clawed at me. My headlamp beam shook wildly across tree trunks that looked like figures waiting just out of reach. I didn't stop until gravel crunched under my boots and the outline of my car loomed out of the dark. I threw everything inside, slammed the doors and locked them. The key rattled in my trembling hands as I turned the ignition. The drive down felt unreal, like I'd woken from a nightmare only to realize it was still happening. That was over a year ago. I've told a few people, but I leave out the details. They laugh, call it a prank, or a wild animal. Maybe that's easier for them, but I still have the stone. Story asterisk 3MY cousin Ray and I had been tossing round the idea of a camping trip since we were teenagers. Every year, one of us would bring it up, and every year, life swatted it down. Work, classes. Bill's something always got in the way, but that summer in late August, everything lined up. Ray had just finished a contract job, and I'd managed to wedge a week off between shifts. No excuses left. We promised ourselves 3 nights in the Appalachian backwoods. No campsites, no cell towers, no friendly rangers to wave hello. Just 2 idiots getting lost on purpose. Ray found the place. He's the type who dives headfirst into obscure forums and forgotten corners of the internet. One night he sent me a screenshot, a blurry photograph of a tall fire tower, supposedly somewhere near the Virginia-Kentucky border. No GPS tag, no real directions. Just a few sentences from a user who hadn't posted in years. According to him, the tower had been abandoned in the 70s and scrubbed off modern maps. The thread ended there, no replies, no coordinates, which, of course, made it perfect, remote, creepy, and verified. We ditched the car at the end of a narrow service road and set out with packs cutting into our shoulders. The first day we hiked nearly 8 miles without ever stepping on what I'd call a trail. It was mostly animal tracks, fallen branches, and old logging scars. No blazes on trees, no helpful markers. Just the quiet weight of the woods pressing in on us. I tried to enjoy it, even after I rolled my ankle on a hidden route an hour in. Nothing serious. Just enough to make Ray laugh at me every time I limped. By sundown we found a low clearing, surrounded by crooked pines. Sometime, had ringed a fire pit with blackened stones. We cooked noodles on a tiny stove, passed round the flask Ray smuggled instead of an extra water filter, and listened to coyotes call to each other across the dark hills sometime after midnight. When the fire had died down to faint embers, Ray whispered about old stories of sheep stealers. I told him to shut the hell up and buried myself deeper in my sleeping bag. The second day, we followed the map southeast. Map is generous. It looked like something photocopied in the 80s, full of faded contour lines and ranger notes written in pencil. Round noon, we stumbled onto the first thing that set my nerves on edge. It was the cab of a truck, half swallowed by earth and moss. No bed, no wheels, no frame, just the rusted shell. Sunken like it had been dropped from the sky decades ago. No road anywhere near. The windshield was long gone. The steering column twisted with mildew. The seats rotted away to springs. On the floorboard was a coil of heavy chain, flaked with orange rust. The smell rising out of that cab was wrong wet soil mixed with something metallic and sour, like oil that had seeped into bone. The instant I leaned close to the window, I felt it, a pressure in my chest, like someone's palm pressed flat against me, pushing me back. I stepped away without saying anything. Ray noticed, but didn't press. We left the cab where it sat, half buried in its own grave. Later that afternoon, we found a shack, if you could even call it that. 4 walls collapsing inward, roof caved, the wood black with rot, too small to be a house, maybe a tool shed, maybe a hunting blind. Ray froze in the doorway, didn't even step inside. We shouldn't be here, he muttered. His voice was different, not teasing, not joking, just flat and certain. I asked him what he meant, but he wouldn't look at me. Not here. We moved on. That night we camped by a sluggish stream. The woods pressed in heavier, quieter. When I woke up near 3 in the morning, I heard it. Something moving outside the tent. Not an animal scatter or scurry. These were careful, Deliberate steps, one after another, to slow. Too measured. I held my breath, listening, then whispered, "Ray's name." He stirred. Confused, the sound stopped instantly, as though whoever or whatever had been circling us froze the moment he moved. "You hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" His voice was groggy. I lay awake the rest of the night, staring into the dark nylon ceiling. The next morning, the climb steepened, while Ray fussed with the water filter. I scouted ahead and froze at what I found. A footprint, 5 toes, human-shaped but not right. Too long, too thin. The arch stretched like something designed for a different gait. The heel ended in a strange, narrow point. Not a boot print, not barefoot. Something in between. Ray crouched over it and whispered, "Who else would even be out here?" The print looked fresh. We didn't find a second one. Just that lone impression pressed into mud. From then on we moved fast. No more breaks. When we reached the ridge clearing, we found the post. Just one wooden pole, maybe 7 feet tall, planted dead center. Coils of twine wound up its length at the top. Bones and feathers were nailed in strange, deliberate patterns hanging from. A hook was a carved disc of wood etched with symbols, loops, crosses, jagged lines. Not letters, not numbers, something older, unreadable. I reached toward it out of reflex. Ray caught my wrist hard. His eyes were wide. "Don't touch it." We didn't speak as we left the clearing. That night the silence of the forest turned wrong. No crickets, no owl,